is entitled Pay It Forward. And the first slide shows, the Sistine Chapel of God reaching down and touching Adam's finger and get everything started. And it all started with Adam. So, does anyone, probably some of us older folks, Gilja Su Yu, President Yu's wife, she's been with True Father since 1955. Is that right? Let me check here. Yeah, she joined the church in 1955. Her husband then became president of HSA UWC Korea, and he was helping True Father put the divine principle together in many ways. She was with the group of women who were expelled from Iwa University in Japan, in Korea. And so she began her life of faith really with deep persecution, rejection by the established Christianity and many others. So it's a really turbulent time. This book is a testimony to God's Word. And as she describes, when she says God's Word, she's actually talking about true parents. She feels that true parents are an embodiment of the Word. So when Father speaks, he says, the Word is recorded, is the record of the tradition by which teacher gained total victory over Satan. At this time, Father was known more as a teacher. Right? Later, when he started to speak in the United States, the speeches were entitled Master Speaks. And now, of course, we just addressed true parents, true father, true mother. But at that time, really the words out of Father's mouth were, for many, the lifeblood, the life water of heaven. So, liberation for heaven and earth, you must spread the word for which teacher had to risk his life. Since the word is from the word of heaven, teacher can work the miracle of resurrection centering on the word, even in the spirit world. So the word is not something that simply flows by us and is gone. It can be compared to teacher's final testament to the descendants. One day, teacher will pass away. When he does, he must leave behind the word. You must realize how rational the word is, how principled it is, and how it has the power to grasp people's hearts. So the next slide was, I wish I had it up there, but it says, pay attention now. Mark is about to tell a story about a doorknob. And when Heavenly Father made the world, it was perfect, right? And in many ways, in John 14, verse 2, Jesus says, my Father's house has many rooms. And thinking about how, when he's talking about Father's house, he's talking about all of creation, both physical and spiritual. And in its own essence, it's pure. It's perfect. But then Adam decided, and Eve decided, we're going to adjust things. I just wanted to make an adjustment. I just wanted to do this kind of thing. That's the I just. Right? And so those who have ever tried to repair anything in an older home, let's say it's a beautiful, vintage, historical home, know that when it was built, a lot of the measurements were different than the measurements today. So although you thought you were going to try something simple like changing a doorknob, suddenly you're faced with the size of the hole is different. The mechanics inside are different. Do they make that anymore? And how do I make a hole bigger when I haven't got anything to actually drill into? So these things progress. So it's the doorknob, and it's the mechanics, and it's the hole, and maybe I should just change the door. Now, you pull the door off and you see the frame is cracked. and it's not in line. So there's all these time changes that take place, all the downline of adjustment and adapting to the environment and so on. So it's no longer the original, but it's still really good. And you want to try and fix it to some degree. So now the door frame is cracked, the wood behind it is rotten, because through time, Satan has had a chance to bore in, weevil in, change things, alter things. So it's no longer the original, right? So we're having to go back and try to recreate the original, but how do you recreate all of creation? How do you recreate this door when everything is different? The measurements are different, the materials are different. Well, you YouTube. And when that doesn't work, you say, oh, heck. And you call somebody who has the skills. So parents have the skill. And they talk to us about the fall, restoration, and the course of human history as it evolves. So you get to be read to today. And a lot of this is from Father speaking to her in the informal, formal sense, with all the early young members. They're sitting around true parents, who actually, not true parents at that time, but true father, because he hadn't quite married yet. And receiving a lot of deeper inspiration from his life, as opposed to just talking a little bit about principle and the current events. So, in a way, this is kind of a segue from Hide's talk about freedom and responsibility. There's no freedom without responsibility. And in portion to responsibility is accountability. So, let me start with this. There's a few concepts in here that are a little different that I came across and I thought they were pretty important. If the good deeds of the ancestors, let's say 70%, of the person that I'm trying to witness to is higher than the good deeds of my ancestors, maybe 50%, their ancestors tried to prevent their descendants from joining the church. If this person is to join the church, their ancestors have to give a bit of their good deeds, say 10%, to my ancestors. But they must come down to a lower position in the spirit world if they did that. From 70% minus 10%, so now they have 60% left over. But they don't want to come down. Being at a higher position in the spirit world means that they will receive God's love more. They will shine more. And they're in a position where they are happier. They naturally don't want to come down. So they grab their descendant by the hand and tell the person, don't go. If you go there, we have to repay the debts of the ancestors of that person who witnessed to you. When that's the circumstance, that particular person will not join the church no matter how hard you try. When you feel as if the good deeds of your ancestors are outdone by the good deeds of the ancestors of the person whom you are trying to witness to, then you must offer sincere Jongsong in the heart of repaying the debts of your ancestors. The amount of Jongsong goes beyond the amount of good deeds of that other person's good deeds. Then any repayment becomes unnecessary because your ancestors have now more good deeds. Then that person's ancestors will let their descendants go. Father told us there's no bargaining when it comes to ancestors in the spirit world. It's very precise. When I come across that, I mean, we're used to the line on the board where, you're going through formation, growth, and perfection, and then there's the fall, and then we start climbing back up. And returning resurrection means that the spirit world has to come down, and you have to overcome their problems as they manifest them to you and around you. And I thought it was a little interesting that not everything is about the guilt of indemnity. Ugly word, And it's like the banker knocking at the door and said, hey, you know what? Your grandfather, he couldn't pay his debts, so now it's on you. Not a good feeling. you got to work 2 jobs. So you think, golly, Grandpa, what did you do? Slide, please.
Sorry, I'm working.
So in here, there's a little diagram. And we're familiar with all the diagrams through the Divine Principle lectures. There's the spiritual fall, we'll call that number 1. And 2, the physical fall. And 3, failure to subjugate all things. Spiritual fall equals pain from problems of the heart. Physical fall, pain from health problems. Failure to subjugate all things, pain from economic problems. So these are translations into modern daily terms. And how do you overcome that? The restoration process is in reverse of the fall. The fall took place, spiritual fall, physical fall, failure to take dominion, physical things. The restoration is in reverse of that. First, we have to restore all things. So we do fundraising, we do tithing, right? Taking dominion of our physical circumstance. And then we witness. Physical health, we have to go out to witness. We have to mobilize our body and take care of ourselves so that we can speak, we can walk, we can look into the eyes of the other. And then blessing. So blessing deals with reversal of evil blood lineage, right? So that's coming back to God and helping to pay indemnity up to the point where when you're blessed, it says in here that 70 generations of your ancestors have the opportunity to rise up. Okay, well that's a lot. And I looked up, well, how much is a generation? How long is a generation? A generation means from birth to the time where that person can procreate and create another generation. So the average generation is 25 years. Usually throughout history, sometimes it's a little earlier than that. So I was doing some calculation and so on, and go back 420 generations, 700 generations, and so on. And however many generations you may have been able to liberate, that's times 25, or actually divided by 25, I guess. Times 25. Thank you. See, technical assistant, she takes care of this stuff. All right. So Father's giving a little bit of a talk about this. What does it mean by debt of ancestors? Father said that there are 3 types of debts according to the order of the fall. First, the debt of Shimjong, the sin of Shimjong, internal character, heart. This comes from the spiritual fall. The spiritual fall is where the first love of Eve was taken. Love is the problem in the end in our human society. There are many conflicts that arouse due to the complications of love. Second, we find the debt of physical body. This comes from the physical fall. Approximately 80% as to why our physical body weakens, becomes diseased, and experiences suffering is due to our ancestors having done physical harm to others or having committed sins of that nature. Father said that physical suffering is a phenomenon resulting from that. Third is the failure to have dominion over all things. It means that we human beings have debts owed to all things. This is why we suffer from financial difficulties. Because Adam and Eve became husband and wife through illicit love, which God did not allow in any way, they have failed to fulfill the blessing of having dominion over all things after perfecting themselves. As a result, they ended up having to use all things through stealing them. That's why in the book of Romans 8:22, all things groan in pain or in travail. And I thought it was interesting phrasing here that as a result, they ended up having to use all things through stealing them. Well, isn't that what illicit ownership is? They had to take ownership of what is around them, but they didn't have the right. They hadn't earned that privilege. So in essence, they and all of humankind, we've been stealing from creation. and only through proper use. And that's why we have so many problems with finance and love and so on. Only through a proper heart, shinjaman. Using things to help others as opposed to only helping ourselves. We have the opportunity to pass it forward and to make an accomplishment a meritorious offering of self. Good deeds. So that's why I started out with good deeds. And it's a little bit different than saying, oh, you have to pay indemnity because somebody else messed up and it's on your shoulders now. So Father uses good deeds as a measure of counteraction. All right. Some of these are not as long, but pretty important. Two people will have difficulties in a relationship if these 1, 2, 3, the fall, right? Spiritual, physical, dominion, become their problems. If my ancestors brought harm to this person's ancestors in the form of love, health, or economy, then my ancestors become the perpetrator and the other person's ancestors become the victims. Therefore, the descendants of this victimized ancestors keep harassing us with these problems. Then we will feel that this person is our enemy. Now, when I think sometimes we misunderstand the word enemy. It doesn't necessarily mean someone who's trying to kill you. It just means someone who is negative, unable to appreciate you, unable to receive your love, unable to accommodate and understanding because of their culture or background. Enemy just means the negative side, unable to accept you, unable to receive you. And because of that, sometimes they continue to do evil things. It doesn't necessarily mean they've picked up arms and are coming to destroy your house or you. However, Father said that such a person is not our enemy, but our teacher. Why is that so? It's because we were oblivious to the sins of our ancestors, but thanks to this person, we can now realize, oh, my ancestors committed sins to your ancestors. That's why we must love our enemy. If you wave off your enemy, if you simply avoid your enemy and leave them, your ancestors' sins will not be indemnified. If you don't make the indemnification, your descendants will have to make the payment. That's the reason we must be good to those who harm us. We should treat our enemies better than we treat those who are good to us. Father once told us something that's famous now. The depths of our ancestors' desires must materialize in this physical world. Therefore, there's a reason behind meeting good people. There's also a reason behind meeting bad people who do bad things to us. We must not avoid the people who are bad to us because these people come to us that they can receive salvation through love. If we do not treat with the utmost sincerity of heart and resolve the debt, then that debt will become our descendants' burden. This is karma. What goes around comes around. Father concluded, if there are debts to be repaid, we will not run into good people, good or bad, and nothing good or bad will happen. Say that they had committed sins, but their sins are covered in the spirit world. Then when we join the Unification Church, then the fact that my ancestors are perpetrators of crimes and other person's ancestors are the victims are revealed. Then my ancestors, who are perpetrators, must give to the descendants of those ancestors, which are victims. That is when the work of indemnification for ancestors and their sins happens. So when you come across an enemy, you should not hate the person who has done bad things to you, but think rather you are making indemnifications for the sins of your ancestors. Even in the same family as brothers, the ancestors are at work in different ways. Also, if you resemble your father, then you are affected by the ancestors of your father. Whereas if you resemble your mother, you are under the influence of your mother's ancestors. We'll kick back a little bit to Grandpa not doing some good things. We had to pay off the debt. All right? When your grandfather has a lot of debts, but you can't pay them off, the lenders don't come knocking at the door. However, if his son or grandson is a man of means, then of course the lenders will come to you saying, you must make the payments for the debts of your father and your grandfather that failed to pay. When we look at this world as a result, the same is applied to Unification Church members. So, on our last slide, I summed up what is pass it forward or pay it forward. Pay it forward is love. If you want to do good things, it just doesn't come from saying, what good thing can I do today? Like a checklist. It has to come from your heart. So when you're witnessing or you're fundraising, you're selling good roses, going out as a jumbo couple, trying to find new people to bless and purify their blood lineage and help their ancestors. None of that happens without love. The only reason we are here is because of God's love. So that's why that first scene is God reaching up to Adam. What's God giving? Giving love. From there, Adam was supposed to pay it forward. Because he didn't, we get to. So in a way, we get to experience the same kind of love Jesus had. He had to deal with all the temptations and overcome them. And he could only do that because he loved his Father. And through that love, he loved people. So it's our opportunity, not our burden, to go out and pass love forward. Thank you. Beloved Heavenly Parent, thank you for loving us so much. Thank you for sending us your word through our true parents of heaven and earth and all mankind. We have the special honor and privilege to be able to take the debts and burdens of our ancestors and through love be able to raise them up through our good deeds, through our shimjong, through Jongsong, the complete and total sincerity of wanting to do your will, ease the suffering of your heart, and bring joy to you by growing ourselves to become more like Jesus, more like the great saints and sages of history who felt that there is so much more than themselves that they have to reach out for and attain so that they can help others. So I pray for your blessing, and that we might continue to express ourselves as a conduit of love, whether it be for ourselves to become better to help others, or help others come to find that love that we experience. And pray and offer ourselves to you now, upholding the names of our beloved true parents, as Mark and Ann Nelson, bless Central family and all blessed couples here. Adieu.